an enemies to lovers book is not enemies to lovers unless they are literally trying to kill each other. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. My hair is low-key eating today. It's kind of giving blowout. It's a shame I have rehearsal later and I'm gonna have to put it up in a ponytail. That's sad. It's that time of year again. As of recording this, today's date is April 30th, which means tomorrow
it's gonna be May.
That's right, it is time once again for my Mythology May reading challenge. I do this every year. This is my 4th year of doing it. Kind of insane. Yeah, we're coming up on my 3-year anniversary of being on BookTube, which is very cool. The very first video reading vlog I did for BookTube was Mythology May back in 2023, and yeah, we're still here. And we're going to be here for quite a lot longer as well, I think, because I'm not going to stop talking about mythology because I'm a nerd. If you don't know me, hi, welcome. My name is Liv. I have a master's degree in classics, specializing in classical reception studies, particularly contemporary receptions of Greek and Roman mythology. So that is basically myth retellings. Yeah, I'm an expert in myth retellings, essentially. So I'm academically qualified to speak on this subject. And yes, every May I try to read as many books that are centered on classical mythology and or ancient history as I can. I have a slightly more modest TBR this year, I'd say. I currently have 6 books that I really want to get to this month. This month I think is going to be quite busy for me. I mean, it always is. May always is quite busy because I always have a show on in May. But I'm going to try and be sensible. I'm not going to be too ambitious. And if I do end up finishing the books that I want to finish, then we'll take it from there. But the last challenge I did, Fantasy February, I did not finish all the books on my TBR. Is that the ice cream truck? Look, I really want ice cream. It's the right weather for it. It's super sunny outside. It's really nice weather out there. And I'm inside in my room. Yay. So anyway, I have a not especially ambitious TBR this year. I'm gonna prioritize books that are on my list of 26 books to read in 2026. I have 3 mythology / ancient history related books on that list, so I'm going to be reading those first. Then I have a series continuation, and then I have a couple of recent releases for 2026 that I'm quite excited about. And yeah, that's it basically. Oh, and I also have a couple of very, very exciting arcs as well that I want to read at some point this month. And yeah, they're ebooks, which is why I forgot about them because object permanence is not a thing, apparently. So I don't have them on my pile, but I do actually have a couple more books that I want to read. But we are going to be starting with one of the books on my list of 26 books to read in 2026, and it is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. That was the ice cream truck. It's gone. I missed my chance. This is Jennifer Saint's debut myth retelling. So far, it is the only book of hers that is currently out that I have not read. So, yeah, I'm getting through her backlist before her next book comes out, which is next month. And I also have an arc of it. It's one of the arcs that I want to read this month. So I want to read this one first because chronology before I get to her new book. So yeah, this is why I'm prioritizing this one. I'm talking too much. I'm fully aware of the fact that I'm talking too much and not saying anything. So I'm gonna go into this with an open mind, I think. I'm not expecting to be blown away by it. I have found that I have enjoyed Jennifer Saint's books, later books, more than I've enjoyed her earlier ones. Like, for example, her most recent release, before her upcoming book, Hera, is so good. Genuinely so good. It's my favorite of hers. And compared with, actually, Atalanta was probably my least favorite book of hers that I've read so far. So, yeah, I don't know. But I feel like in this book, she might still kind of be finding her authorial voice, perhaps. And I also haven't seen like the best reviews of it, but I'm going to go into it with an open mind. I'm not going to go into it as a hater, obviously. I don't want to not enjoy this book, because that would be a waste of time. I'm excited to see what the debut was like, and then it'll be interesting to compare it with her most recent release as well when I read that. So, yeah, I'm going to get started, and I will see you when I'm done with my thoughts. Hello, hi, I am back with my first review of the video. This is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I have literally just finished it, so forgive me if my thoughts are a little scattered. This book is obviously about Ariadne, as well as her sister Phaedra, who are the daughters of Minos, of Minotaur fame. And yeah, it's kind of a retelling of their lives, um, having to contend with the the viciousness of men in this very patriarchal ancient Greek civilization. Mainly Theseus. We have so much beef with Theseus. If I were to see Theseus, it would be on site.
Catch me outside. How about that?
But as well as the whole kind of labyrinth Minotaur stuff with Theseus leaving Ariadne on an island, that literally happens in like, I think like the first 100 pages of the book, and then like that kind of I thought that would be maybe the main part of the story, but it's really not. In a way, that's kind of the beginning of the story, because then you get Dionysus turning up. Um, he gets into a romance with Ariadne, and then you get the whole situation with Phaedra and Theseus and Hippolytus in Athens. There is quite a lot of content in this book, and on top of that, you also get a lot of stories of other myths as well that are kind of, I guess, vaguely related to the main story. Like they may feature kind of characters that are in the book, or they may kind of have morals, have lessons, that are similar to what the characters should be learning, or they might foreshadow some things. That definitely happens a lot towards the beginning. There is a lot of exposition. I would probably say maybe too much exposition. Because, like, you're reading the book and you're getting into the plot, and then suddenly it jumps to an entirely different story with entirely different characters. And most of the time, they're myths that I already know. So I'm a little bit like, okay, I want to go back to the original story now. I did enjoy the book. Probably actually more than I was expecting to. It does have some interesting takes on womanhood in a very patriarchal society, as well as motherhood, and how the experience of motherhood can be very different for different people. It doesn't really do anything particularly special with the myth, and I would also say that compared to like Jennifer Saint's later books, it it doesn't have the same strength of voice, of narrative style. I think that is something that she develops throughout her work as she keeps putting out more and more books. This one, for a debut, is good, but it doesn't quite have that strength of style quite yet. The kind of authorial voice isn't quite as developed yet. And that's understandable because it is a debut. So, yeah, while I wasn't like completely blown away by it, I wasn't really expecting to be, and I do feel like I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It's definitely not as bad as some of the reviews I've seen say it is. it's still pretty solid. And I would also say it's definitely relatively beginner friendly as well. Because of the exposition, you don't need to have a lot of background knowledge about mythology in order to follow what's going on. Um, it is very much told to you. So yeah, that is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. Um, very much looking forward to reading This Immortal Heart later this month, which is her next book that's coming out in June. And I'm very lucky to have an arc of it. It's also going to be really interesting because B. Fitzgerald is coming out with an Ariadne retelling later this year. And I'm going to do everything in my power to try and get my hands on an early copy of it in whatever format I can. Because I want more B. Fitzgerald content right now, please. So it will be very interesting to kind of compare the two and see those two probably quite different takes on Ariadne. I know B. Fitzgerald's take is probably going to be more on like the rom-com side of things. This one is not a comedy at all. And I wouldn't really even go so far as to say it's much of a romance. It's a lot more literary, I think. And I do actually quite like the fact that she doesn't romanticize things. She doesn't romanticize the actions of any of the men in this book, including Dionysus, who initially seems like such a good guy. And I mean, he's a whole lot better than Theseus is, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, he is still a god. He's still an immortal, very powerful being who has an ability to wield power over mortals, and he does that with questionable results sometimes. So I do appreciate that that is addressed in this book, and it's not just the mortal men that get called out; it's also the immortal men that get called out. So yeah, Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, pretty solid debut, and yeah, that is the first book for this reading vlog done. I'm gonna move straight on to something slightly different now. This is A History of the Roman Empire in 21 Women by Emma Southern. Um, it's, yeah, ancient Roman history, nonfiction. So quite different, I guess, from a myth retelling. I'm excited to read this. I read A Fatal Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum by the same author last year. Loved it. Probably my favorite nonfiction book I've ever read. So I have high hopes for this. And I'm also later this month going to um, see Emma Southern as part of her book tour for her new book service, which is coming out later this month. So getting to hear her in conversation with Elodie Harper, who is amazing. Also, that's going to be a really, really cool event, I think. So yeah, I'm going to give this book a read um, in preparation, I guess. And yeah, I will let you know what I think. Hi, I'm back with another book review. Last night I finished A History of the Roman Empire in 21 Women by Emma Southern. This basically does what it says on the tin. It's a history of the Roman Empire, pretty much from like its foundation up until the fall of the Western Roman Empire, um, through records of women that still exist today. There aren't that many, like, there's not a lot of information about like real women who existed in the Roman Empire, especially not like ordinary women. Um, like you get a lot of kind of empresses, people who are related to emperors, and like well-known generals and stuff. But not a lot about like the average woman, um, because I guess that wasn't really considered important enough to like keep hold of for um, like a lot of history. But nowadays, I guess it's become more valuable. It's considered a lot more valuable because like it's just as important to know about like ordinary life, what ordinary society was like back then, just as much as what life was like as one of the elite, if not even more important, because like we're talking about the top 1% of Romans who like have a good amount of records about their life still existing today. And then like there are so many other people who just we have no idea if they existed, what their names were, what life was like for them. Um, but this does a good job of kind of giving us a quick whistle stop tour of the Roman Empire through the eyes of women. Usually, kind of the more important ones, the more elite ones, but occasionally you do get some slightly more ordinary women as well. And you kind of get a glimpse at what life was like for them. It's just kind of looking at Roman history through a different lens and centering the women involved rather than the men. So, in terms of like the political intrigue and like transfers of power from emperor to emperor, especially when those emperors are assassinated, which happened a lot in the Roman Empire, um, you actually did get women who were related to those men involved actually involving themselves as well and like being at the center of ensuring that their their relatives got the best deal in the situation. Often I feel like Roman history is just like exclusively a men's game, and I feel like that is the case a lot of the time, but sometimes it is just because the men are considered to be the most important, the only ones worth talking about when actually you're missing out on a great deal of interesting things in history by erasing the women. And yeah, this book kind of discusses that and recenters women. I have to say, Emma Southern is quickly becoming one of my favorite nonfiction authors. Um, it's like exactly the same as in A Fatal Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, in that she strikes a really good balance between informative scholarship and scrutinizing sources from every angle to like uncover biases behind ancient history as we know it. Like she will talk about how history was very often written by very very elite men, at least the versions of history that still exist to us, and also the fact that a lot of extant historical records were written many many years after events happen, so they can't always be reliable. So that is very important when you're talking about like scholarship like this. It's important to properly evaluate your sources. So that's something I really respect her for always doing that. But at the same time, the writing itself is so entertaining. It's so funny and witty, and it's like laugh out loud hilarious sometimes. It's kind of it's giving Horrible Histories if Horrible Histories was written for grown-ups who were also extremely woke. I don't think I enjoyed this book quite as much as I enjoyed A Fatal Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. Um, I found the later chapters kind of dragging a little bit. Like as soon as they started focusing in on Christianity in the Roman Empire, my eyes started to glaze over, because that's not really a topic that I'm massively interested in. I know it's important to talk about when you're talking about Roman history as a whole, but for me, it's just not really a topic that I'm especially interested in. And there was a lot of content and a lot of detail on that subject, especially in the last few chapters. So I personally lost interest a little bit towards the end, but overall, it is still a very entertaining book. It's a great introduction to Roman history as a whole, um, rather than just like the late Republic, early Empire, which is the the kind of area of history that I know most about because that is what a lot of history classes kind of focus in on. At least in my experience at university, there was a lot of focus on the late Republic, early Empire, that kind of period of like 100 years or something, which in the grand scheme of entire Roman history. That's not a lot, really. So if you want to learn more about like other periods in Roman history, then this is a good place to start for sure. Um, it's not like the most detailed history ever because if it was, the book would be so much longer. Um, and I don't think I could have handled that in terms of attention span. So it's definitely not like the be all and end all of Roman history, but it's a good introduction, I think, especially in terms of feminist history as well. So yeah, it's good. And then look what arrived yesterday. This is my hardback copy of Andromeda by E.S. MacLeod that I pre-ordered last year, and it arrived. Hooray! It's so shiny. It's so pretty. Um, I read this as an ARC from NetGalley, which I'm very grateful for, as part of my 24-hour reading challenge I did last month. And the video vlog for that is already up on my YouTube channel. Go and check it out. It was a time. And I said that I wanted to do a little bit more of a detailed review when my finished copy arrived in the post, and it has. So yeah, we can do not like a massive in-depth review, but I want to still talk about this book because it's out now. So this is a reimagining of the life of Andromeda, um, who was this mythological Ethiopian princess who was famously rescued by and married to the Greek hero Perseus of Medusa fame. Um, this tells a slightly different version of the story that um, potentially is missed out in all of these myths that have been written by men and often focus on just the men. So in this book, Andromeda is explicitly a black woman. She is an Ethiopian princess. She's very often whitewashed in a lot of depictions of her, but she is a black woman. Um, and in this book, she enters into something of an enemies to lovers relationship with a shape shifting naiad called Ceto, who is sent by Poseidon after Andromeda's mother makes a bargain with him about her daughter's beauty. And yeah, Ceto kind of arrives to watch over Andromeda, make sure that everything is kind of being played fair with this bargain. They don't like each other at first, obviously, because they're on kind of two opposing sides of this bargain. Um, but there is an undeniable amount of passion there, and yeah, the plot's from there basically. I am an absolute sucker for slow burn enemies to lovers stories. So like this book was right up my street. The romance is done so well. The amount of like possessiveness that Andromeda and Ceto have for each other, the protectiveness they have for each other. Like I was kicking my feet and giggling at this romance. It was so cute. If I had to give like one very minor criticism, it would probably be that like I wanted the book to include Ceto's point of view because this book is told pretty much entirely from Andromeda's point of view, and I wanted to hear from Ceto. I wanted to get her thoughts more. I wanted to get insight into what she truly thought about Andromeda. We do also get some Perseus content towards the end of the book, and I quite enjoyed the depiction of him as like this kind of caring, if occasionally careless hero who doesn't have a lot of brains, but he does have a lot of brawn. He's like he's very kind of golden retriever coded. Um, he's a bit silly, but he means well. I was initially quite concerned about how the book was going to end because it gets to a point at around the 70% mark that I feel like it could have had its conclusion there. And I saw that there were like 100 pages left, and I was like, oh God, do I have to sit through more of this? Um, and I was worried that it was just going to be one of those books that kind of just drags on and on unnecessarily without like a satisfying conclusion. Because myths are a lot like that. They don't really have satisfying ends. they kind of just continue on because as they got told like orally, you'd get people who would just add on to the story, and so quite often myths don't have very satisfying ends, and retellings as a result sometimes don't have very satisfying ends. And I was scared that this was going to be another situation with that, but the author does something really, really interesting with the narrative voice towards the end of the book that is actually quite poignant. It made me a little bit emotional, actually. And I'm not going to get into the details of what that narrative device is because spoilers. But I thought it was really cool, and it definitely made the ending feel a lot more satisfying for real. So overall, this might just be the greatest mythological love story never told, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a great retelling. It gives a voice to an underrated and underrepresented figure in classical mythology, and yeah, would definitely recommend. So I'm going to be moving straight on to my next book, which is going to be The Palace of Eros by Caro de Robertis. This is the third and final book that I have on my list of 26 books to read in 2026 that I've included in my May TBR. So yeah, this is next up on the priorities. Um, this is apparently a sapphic retelling of the myth of Psyche and Eros, which already is a great myth. Um, it's a great romantic story. So theoretically, having a sapphic version of it would make the story even better, I think, in my opinion. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to reading it, and yeah, I'll let you know what I think. Another day, another book read. This is The Palace of Eros by Cara de Robertis. It's a sapphic genderqueer retelling of the myth of Psyche and Eros. In this retelling, Eros is a genderqueer, non binary, shape shifting goddess who mostly presents femininely, but like her gender identity and expression is more expansive than the strict male and female binary of ancient Greece. And so she and Psyche have to contend with staying true to themselves and to each other. And yeah, having this incredible love story in a place and time period where they're not accepted generally. I thought it was such an interesting take on the myth and such an interesting take on the character of Eros specifically because why why does this embodiment of desire and love have to be this this male guy? Why can't the embodiment of desire be something else entirely? Something that breaks the boundaries, breaks the binary. And to have this book written by a non binary author as well really added a layer of authenticity and realness to the character as well. Like you really got the sense of Eros not being able to be true to herself if she was unable to embrace all the aspects of her identity. And I also thought Psyche was a really interesting character as well. Like, I have always thought she's been an interesting character. Like, she's one of the few heroines in mythology that has a lot of agency. You typically get when women in mythology act of their own accord and are kind of the people who take their own destiny into their own hands, they tend to be villainized a lot. People like Medea, like Clytemnestra, Hecuba, they're they're the witches, the hags, the women who cheat on their husbands. But Psyche is very much a heroine. Like she is a protagonist. She could easily be a Disney princess, in my opinion. So yeah, I really like the myth, the original myth, and I thought this was a really interesting and original take on it. I loved the prose. The quality of the prose is so good. It's so lyrical and flowing. Even in like the spicy scenes, they were just so gorgeously written, so lyrical. And there were quite a lot of spicy scenes in this book. They don't call it the Palace of Eros for nothing. It is really a celebration of female sexuality and empowerment in that sexuality. I adored the first 200 pages. The last 100 pages kind of lost me a little bit. I think the pacing sped up so much that it felt kind of rushed compared to the first 200 pages, which were slow paced but so incredibly well written in terms of the prose that like I did not care that there wasn't much plot going on. I loved reading it. And then suddenly the pacing just sped up so much and gave me a little bit of whiplash. I think the explanation behind it is probably that the author wanted to spend as much time as possible on the romance aspect of the book. And if you know the myth of Psyche and Eros, you get the first half of the story where they are kind of in close proximity to each other at all times. And then the second half of the story is where they are very much separated. And it's that second half of the story that was just kind of rushed through in a matter of chapters. And I guess that's probably because the author probably wanted to get back to them being reunited as soon as possible. But then, even after that reunion, it still felt like all of the loose ends were tied up very quickly. Like, I don't know, the stakes didn't feel quite as high as they should have done. There wasn't a massive amount of like big conflict. And if there was conflict, it was just resolved too quickly. So yeah, I don't know. I could have done with the book being a little bit longer just to maintain the consistency of that pacing and that lovely focus on the prose. I guess wanting a book to be longer is never really a harsh criticism. I guess it means that I liked it a lot. Um but yeah, I don't know. It had me in the first half. It's still like a solid 4-star book. I wished that the the last 100 pages of the book were more similar to the first 200 pages, I think. But yeah, it was still a good read and I did enjoy it. So yeah, that is The Palace of Eros. Moving on, I am going to start this book. This is Tender Cruelty by Katie Robert. It is the 9th book in the Dark Olympus series. This is like by far the longest series that I have committed to in a really, really long time. And I'm kind of living for it. The last time I read a book in this series, I think it might have been this time last year actually. And I remember loving it. Book 8 was fantastic. I think I might have potentially included it in my favorite books of the year, possibly, or it like was very close to being on that list. Like it was so good. And this book focuses on a pairing that I have been waiting to read about, to like have a book focused on them for ages, literally for years. So I'm so happy that it's finally happening and I hope it lives up to my quite high expectations. So I'm going to start this. Also, I have finally finished the ebook that I was working on at the end of last month. And I wanted to finish that before I started any other ebooks, and I finally finished it. Thank God. So that means I can make a start on one of the arcs that I want to read um, this month. So I'm going to be starting that. The first arc I want to read this month is an arc of Maiden by Georgia Layton, which actually isn't a Greek myth retelling, because I do like to branch out sometimes. Um, I try to read maybe one or two not Greek myth related retellings in Mythology May, just to kind of have a little bit more of a range, read outside my comfort zone a little bit. So yeah, this I believe is a retelling of The Legend of George and the Dragon, which is very exciting. Um, I don't think I have read a retelling of that legend before, apart from maybe I think The Prayer of the Orange Tree is very loosely based on that legend, possibly very, very loosely. So yeah, I think that will be interesting. I will also start that, and I'm gonna start this, and whichever one I finish first, I will come back and tell you what I think. I kid you not, this book is literally dedicated, and I quote, to every single person who cursed me for Zeus and Hera being book 9 instead of book 3. I feel called out. So last night I finished reading Tender Cruelty by Katie Robert. This is the ninth and penultimate book in the Dark Olympus series, which is a dystopian, spicy, dark romance series set in this I suppose like city state. Maybe it's like a small country that's magically supposedly cut off from the rest of the world, um, and it's ruled by 13 people. The 13, um, who are named after the 12 Olympians plus Hades, and they kind of manage whatever domains the the gods are in charge of in Greek mythology. So, for example, like the person with the Demeter title is in charge of farming and agriculture. The person with the Ares title is in charge of security and the army and stuff. This book follows Zeus and Hera. Zeus is like kind of the king of everything. He's the basically the leader of the country. And Hera is like the title they would give to the first lady. Like it's whoever marries Zeus, basically. And so because of reasons that are laid out in the first two books in this series, um, these two people, Zeus and Hera, although they aren't called that originally, like they have other names, but I can't say because spoilers. They ended up getting married at the end of book two, which is why I've been waiting so long for a book to be focused on them. Um, and yeah, so they're married. It's kind of a marriage of convenience. Um, and they hate each other. Like, literally, one of them is plotting to assassinate the other one, which is honestly amazing. I really dig that. In my opinion, an enemies to lovers book is not enemies to lovers unless they are literally trying to kill each other. So, thank you, Katie Robert, for not giving me false advertising. I felt like in this book there was a good balance of plot and romance. There is an overarching plot to the entire series, and because this is one of the last books in the series, everything's kind of building up to a bit of a climax. And yeah, so there is a lot of plot. I also really enjoyed how most of the main characters from the other books in the series turn up in this book at some point. Like it felt like a reunion episode. Like we had like Psyche and Eros from book two. We had actually a lot of Persephone and Hades content from book one. We had um Helen and Achilles and Patroclus, my goats, turn up from book three. We had my absolute fave Poseidon from book eight turn up. I missed him so much. In fact, the only person I was kind of expecting to turn up and then didn't, and I really missed in this book was Dionysus. Like, I thought there was going to be a moment where like at least he'd be spoken to on the phone, but he never turned up, and I was quite sad about that because I love him. Like, granted, he is never a romantic lead in any of the books. He's more just kind of a recurring character who turns up and causes mischief, and we love him for that. But yeah, I missed him a lot, and I'm kind of hoping that he has a major role to play in the final book, although I'm kind of scared about what that role might be, maybe. So, in terms of plot, I enjoyed it. Um, in terms of romance, as much as I loved the enemies to lovers trope, I wanted the like emotional development of their relationship to be a bit more slow burn. Because on like a spicy side, it's very much not slow burn. Like there is a sex scene, I think, in like chapter 2 of this book. So yeah, you get a lot of that. But in terms of like the emotion of it all, I feel like it went from hate to love very quickly. Like 1 minute they're saying they hate each other, and then the next, like they're catching feelings and they're like cuddling in bed and feeling safe with each other. And it's like, weren't you literally like plotting to kill each other a minute ago? Make it make sense. The math isn't mathing. Especially for Zeus. Like, as much as I love a man who pines and a man who falls first, I don't know. I still felt like he fell a little bit too quickly in my mind. Because if your wife is literally plotting to kill you, I still feel like you wouldn't feel safe sleeping in her presence. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, overall, was this my favorite book in the series? No, um, not by a long shot. But I still enjoyed it. I still feel like it was worth the wait. Um, I feel like if we had got this as book 3, I don't think it would have hit quite as much as this. I do think it was definitely worth the wait. Um, it's still a fun read. Like I have so much fun reading these books. They're such an easy read. I think the hardest thing about reading this series is the fact that I kind of forget a little bit about what happens in the previous books. Especially like at this point because I'm kind of somewhat reading them as they come out, and I'm having to wait a little while in order to read the next installment. And by the time I get to read that book, like what happens in the previous books kind of leaves my head a little bit. So remembering what happens in the series is probably the hardest part. But it is such an easy read. I bashed this out in like 2 days, and I was pretty busy both those days as well. So yeah, it was fun. The final book comes out literally next month. I don't know whether I'm going to be reading it this year or I might try and save it for Mythology May next year if I can bear to wait that long to see what happens. But yeah, that is Tender Cruelty. Moving on, I am about 50 pages into Maiden. Um, I read a little bit of that today. So far, pretty good. I'm definitely getting the vibes of like it being kind of a young adult version of The Prior of the Orange Tree. Although that might just be me because Priory is kind of the only other book with dragons that I've read, so I have literally no other frame of reference for other dragon related books. So yeah, all that to say, I'm enjoying Maiden so far. Still relatively early days yet though. Um, what else? I I think this weekend going to read this book. This is The Lost Daughter of Sparta by Felicia Day. It's a graphic novel and relatively short, so I'm feeling like I could probably bash this out in one, maybe two sittings. So shouldn't take me too long. We'll probably finish this one first and give you my thoughts relatively soon when I have read it. So yeah, I will get started with this and I will see you at some point soon for another update. Hi, I'm back. It has been less than 24 hours. I read the entirety of this last night. Like, I was locked in. Did not want to put it down, even though it was heading towards 2 a.m. and I was sleepy. I was fully gripped. So this is The Lost Daughter of Sparta by Felicia Day, illustrated by Rowan McCall. It is a story inspired by a very kind of niche character in Greek mythology. Niche as in she is mentioned literally once in a single sentence in a random work by Hesiod. So we follow our main girl, who's called Philano. Um, she is the youngest daughter of Tyndareus and Leda, um, which means that she is the younger sister of Helen, Clytemnestra, Timandra, Castor, Pollux. Famous family. It's like the Kardashians in here. And Philano has a curse put upon her, that she will one day betray her husband, much like her sisters did previously. And she wants to break this curse because she wants to be relatively happy in life. So she is sent on three tasks by Aphrodite, who is the one who placed the curse on her. And yeah, we follow her trying to complete these three tasks. Oh, and also Artemis is there. She's being a mentor. She's helping her out. They get pretty close. The plot had like real Psyche and Eros vibes. You know, the whole like she needs to complete three tasks set by Aphrodite. There's a bit of a romance going on. Yeah, it was giving Psyche and Eros, but like sapphic. So yeah, even better. And I also really liked the inclusion of other less known myths in this book. There are a few name drops and mentions of kind of the more niche Greek and Roman myths, um, similar to how Philano is very, very lesser known. You have mentions of Timandra, obviously, who's also a lesser known sibling of Helen and Clytemnestra. You get mentions of Caeneus, who is also quite a niche character who turns up in Ovid's Metamorphoses, but has a really interesting story as well. You get mentions of Echidna, who is the mother of several very well known monsters in Greek mythology, but she herself is a bit more of a niche character as well. So, yeah, I like the fact that it does honor some lesser known stories and characters. I loved the art style. It's so gorgeous. The whole thing is in black and white with like flashes of red, which really it's so striking and it's so beautifully drawn as well. You get some really nice symbolism in there, and I think that the use of color is really well done. I particularly loved Artemis' character design. I'll put some pictures up in when I'm editing of uh her in the graphic novel, but I loved how she kind of had this massive range of emotion. The fact that she goes from this kind of uncanny, terrifying goddess that looks almost kind of Studio Ghibli like. It reminded me a little bit of, oh god, what's her name from Spirited Away? You know, the scary grandmother witch character. Her, as in like she's ageless. She has lived for a really long time, seen a lot of shit. Um, kind of terrifying. Um, like she has a lot of power. And then like one page later, she's transformed into this young woman who looks so much younger and is very hurt. Like she's displaying a lot of emotions and you really feel for her. I loved the range in her character. So yeah, that was something I really liked about this. Overall, I would definitely recommend this. I haven't seen anyone else talking about this book, which it kind of makes sense because it came out like a couple of months ago, I think. Like it's really recent release, but I haven't heard anyone else talking about it, even like prior to its release. And yeah, it's really good. If you would like to read a graphic novel um, that is inspired by Greek mythology, tells a new story, um, it's also sapphic. Yeah, definitely pick this one up. It's also kind of shown me that I do need to read more graphic novels. I don't tend to gravitate towards them because a lot of them are kind of in multiple volumes, which can get quite expensive. Um, but I like reading them. And also, I tend to kind of devour them in one sitting, like I did with this. So yeah, I don't know. If anyone does have any recommendations for graphic novels that are standalones, and are particularly good, exciting, yeah, let me know, please. Okay, so my plan now is to A, continue on with Maiden, continue reading that, try to maybe finish that in the next few days. I don't know, we'll see. And then I also want to start reading this book, Vile Lady Villains by Denai Christopoulou, which sounds so cool. Like the premise sounds amazing. It's a crossover between Clytemnestra and Lady Macbeth, kind of timey-wimey, genre hopping, sapphic. Again, I'm picking up a lot of sapphic books this month, this vlog, which is very exciting. Um, so yeah, this is going to be another one, and yeah, I guess whichever book I finish first, I will let you know my thoughts on it. Yeah, that's it. Hi, it's been a few days. Please don't mind Ollie Mer's gate crashing this section of the video. This was literally the only t-shirt I could find today to go to rehearsal later. So yeah.
Hello.
Someone is whistling really loud outside my window right now. Who is that? Also, I got new glasses. Except it's really not that much of a difference because I literally got the exact same frame designs for both of my pairs of glasses. So it's actually more like Nikki Tutorials revealing her new hair color, and it's like basically the same shade. It's like that, but with my glasses. Like there is no difference, basically, except I can see a tiny bit better. Anyway, books. The other day I finished Maiden by Georgia Layton. This was an arc that I got off of NetGalley, which I'm really grateful for. I do like to branch out sometimes with my mythology, read a little bit outside of my comfort zone. This book in particular is a retelling of the myth of George and the Dragon. It's set in this fictional land that is based very loosely off of Anglo Saxon England, with various different kingdoms and kings and peoples. And every year, every spring in this one particular kingdom, a maiden has to be chosen by lot to be sacrificed to the great dragon, in order to appease this dragon and stop it from um, terrorizing the kingdom. And that's obviously a really horrible thing for all of the girls and women and their families who are like growing up in this kingdom. And it's not it's never certain if they're going to like make it to adulthood. We follow three women whose lives collide, because of this maiden sacrifice that happens every year, and they end up um, kind of coming together in an effort to stop this sacrifice once and for all. I found this a very easy read, I guess because it is young adult. Um, it definitely gives Priory of the Orange Tree vibes, but for a younger audience. The plot moves quickly, the world building is intriguing. I liked how the three protagonists, we get kind of three different POVs in this book. They're so different with their own kind of different wants and issues. You have a woman who wants to be um, the first female knight in centuries. You have this princess who was like adopted into the royal family, but it's very clear that she has always been different and been an outsider and hasn't really belonged. And then you have a mother who has lost children and lost family members, because of this maiden sacrifice. And I like the fact that all three of these women represent different aspects of womanhood, and it kind of goes to show that there is no kind of one way to be a woman, to be feminine. If I'm honest, I wasn't 100% convinced of the friendship between two of these main characters. That kind of it wants to be the central focus point of the story, this female friendship. But if I'm honest, it kind of felt to me like they spent more time in the book kind of drifting apart and arguing and not spending time together rather than them, being together, being friends. There are a lot of time skips in the first half of the book, and you're seeing like kind of little kind of glimpses into the development of their friendship over the course of several years. So I guess like in the grand scheme of things, they have been friends for a really long time, but we don't really get to see that. It's more kind of told to us rather than shown. And then in the second half of the book, there's kind of more of a shift from that female friendship to a romance between one of the main characters and then another character who is male. And that kind of ends up being one of the focal points. And I don't know, it was a sweet romance, but I guess I was hoping for more of a focus on the female friendship. Or even, and hear me out on this, I feel like the book could have been maybe a little bit better if it was sapphic. And maybe I am saying that because I'm kind of maybe potentially comparing it with The Pride of the Orange Tree, because that's one of my only kind of points of comparison in terms of books with dragons. And maybe I'm also potentially only saying it because I have read a lot of sapphic books recently. But yeah, I don't know. I was low key kind of shipping the two kind of central characters who have this very strong bond. But I don't know, that might just be me. That might just be personal preference. I do tend to think that things are better when they are sapphic.
That's my opinion!
That said, I did still enjoy the book. It was entertaining. It was a very easy read. Um, yeah. The ending in particular, I really liked. It was exciting, climactic. It was a really good way to wrap all of the loose ends up. Emotionally, it was very fulfilling, very satisfying. So, yeah, I don't know. It definitely isn't the best book that I have read so far this month, but it was still good. I'm pretty sure it will probably already be out by the time I upload this video. So, yeah, thanks again to NetGalley and Bantam for sending me an arc of the book. I am currently not quite halfway through reading Vile Lady Villains. I think about 150 pages in. Currently struggling a little bit with it. Um, I think I realized quite soon after starting it that it wasn't really going to be my thing. I think just in terms of like the writing style. But I'm still gonna keep going with it. I'm not gonna give up, not gonna DNF because I still want to like end up enjoying it by the end. There will definitely be some things I like about it for sure. Um, and the concept is really, really cool. It's really interesting, very meta. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna keep persevering with that one. I am also going to start This Immortal Heart, which is the arc of the new Jennifer Saint book that I have, which is also very exciting. It'll be very interesting to compare that with Ariadne, which was her debut. So yeah, lots more to read. Um, yeah, I guess nothing more than to say. I'll see you in a few days whenever I have next finished a book. I'm gonna go. Bye. Okay, you're gonna have to bear with me today because we're in the middle of a heat wave, a fat heat wave here in the UK. It's not fun. I don't do well in heat normally. In heat, ugh.
Brother, ugh.
I'm not very good in hot climates, is what I'm saying. Um, it's hot, it's humid, it's not fun. Don't ask me a single thing about Metallica because I'm not a fan. I'm just wearing this because it's very much suns out, guns out. And I need to keep keep the pits ventilated, as they say. I mean, I say suns out, guns out, but like let's be real, there is nothing there. There are also children screaming outside my window, um, which is really fun. So if you hear any of that, if that gets picked up on the mic, I'm sorry. Like, it's nice weather outside, so there will be children playing in their gardens, and that's something I'm just gonna have to put up with. Because I'm not gonna go tell them to shut up because I'm not that kind of person. All this to say, I'm quite irritable at the moment, so maybe this review could be blamed on that, um, and the fact that I have very little tolerance at the moment. But also at the same time, I just don't think that this book was very good, objectively. I am talking about Vile Lady Villains. This was a huge disappointment. This was on my list of books I was most looking forward to reading this year. This was one of my most anticipated releases of 2026. I pre ordered this. I was super excited to read it. The cover looks amazing. It's so beautiful. It's like shiny. But yeah, this was a disappointment. It is a real situation of great concept with terrible execution. So we are essentially following Clytemnestra from Greek mythology and Lady Macbeth from Shakespeare. Um, and it's a crossover episode basically. They kind of accidentally meet and enter this like realm of stories, um, and come into contact with other characters from mythology, other characters from Shakespeare. Um, they befriend Shakespeare himself because he is also somehow there as well. And I guess at first they're trying to like get back to their own stories, but there is also a point where they're like trying to escape or trying to free other people from this realm that they're trapped in, or destroy the realm altogether, or like create new stories for themselves. I don't really know is the thing. I don't know what the objective was. What these characters were working towards. And I think that is probably one of the issues with it. I think the author had a concept, had a fantastic concept of these two characters who come from very different stories, very different sources, but they're both extremely villainized in literature, in receptions. Having these two characters, these two villainesses, come together and fall in love in a sapphic crossover, slow burn, enemies to lovers storyline. Um, like I would 100% be here for that, but I feel like the author didn't really have anything other than that concept. There wasn't really a plot, I guess, to come out of the concept. So yeah, I really love the idea of a a sapphic crossover between two villainized literary women. But to be honest, both of the main characters lacked real substance. I don't know, they were just kind of what they weren't really built upon, I guess. They were so indistinct from each other that I was constantly forgetting which point of view we were in, which character was which, because they get given basically different names at the beginning of the book. Like they give each other nicknames, and for about half of the book, I was like still figuring out who was who, essentially. And like I guess Clytemnestra's main character trait was that she was constantly threatening to stab people. Like she had a knife and she wasn't going to let go of it.
What you have? No!
Lady Macbeth, I really kind of struggled to get a grip on her character. I guess she was really kind of going for that redemption arc. Like she's kind of misunderstood, and she isn't her own person because she's like a woman written by a man, to the point where she doesn't even like have her own name other than Lady Macbeth, which isn't hers, it belongs to her husband. But I think the problem was that we kind of started the story with her not knowing who she is. And I'm not sure if she figured out who she was by the end of it. So yeah, I found it difficult to root for the characters because I felt like the characters didn't really have a lot of substance, and as a result, I found it difficult to root for their relationship as well. The world building, I feel like it didn't make an awful lot of sense. I don't really mind that. I don't mind a kind of dreamscapey world where things are a little bit kind of topsy turvy. It was kind of giving a little bit Alice in Wonderland at first, a little bit Catabasis. Like that was kind of the aesthetic I was getting for the first kind of 50 pages, maybe. I didn't mind that. Like honestly, I was kind of vibing with it. Um, but it didn't really last for the whole book. It was really just the first kind of few pages, few chapters. And then in terms of actual plot, I felt like a lot of the time the story kind of progressed with like a very convenient somehow this happened. Like somehow a door appears from nowhere that will take you exactly where you want to go. Or somehow this character is going to rescue you at like the exact time when you need to be rescued. And it's never like explained how that happens. It's very like you have to suspend your disbelief and just kind of go with it. The mechanics of the world felt very convenient. And as a result, I felt like the stakes weren't very high because I always felt like I always knew that the characters were going to be rescued. The characters were always going to have the plot armor to miraculously escape any situation they get put in. So, yeah, if I'm honest, I was quite close to DNFing this. I'm not gonna lie. But I didn't. I persevered. I got through it. I don't tend to DNF things because I am a completionist, and sometimes that is not a good thing. Sometimes I would be better off DNFing books just for like my own mental health, my own peace of mind. But I kept going with this. I got to the end. Was it worth it? Maybe not. So yeah, overall, this was a pretty big disappointment. Um, I loved the concept. Was really really excited by the concept, but there just wasn't really anything else to the book other than that concept. I don't know. I feel like I'm being really mean. I feel really bad. I always feel really bad about giving negative reviews to books. But I am genuinely kind of struggling to think of anything positive to say about it. I hate that I am being so negative. Genuinely. I don't like it. I don't like negatively reviewing books. But it has to be done sometimes. So yeah, that is Vile Lady Villains. This might be my last update for a while, because I'm about to go into show week. I'm always doing a show at the end of May, so it's excellent timing for when I am doing a mythology May vlog. But yeah, I'm about to go into show week. We're doing a production of Evita. I'm going to be incredibly busy and incredibly tired all the time. So I don't know when I'm going to have the time to read. Hopefully, I'm hoping to finish at least one more book for this video, for this vlog. I think I'm about 30% maybe through this Mortal Heart, and I'm enjoying it so far. Um, so that's good. I'm hoping we're gonna have hopefully one positive review, more in this video. And then I also yesterday got approved for one more last minute arc that I want to read by the end of this month. We'll see if that actually happens because I don't know again how much time I'm going to have to read. Um, but I have pretty high expectations for that one as well. So yeah, I don't know when I'm next gonna see you to film an update, but I will see you at some point, I'm sure. It's been a while. Um, yeah, I've been busy. I did a show last week. Um, it was a long week, very exhausting. Um, we also just so happened to have a heat wave on that same week where I was stuck in an old theatre. It was very hot. All week, all day, every day. I don't know. The sun just happened to choose violence for that weekend, that week only, and now I have a stinking cold. My throat hurts. I feel like this always happens straight after I do a show because it's really hard work, and I'm just kind of focusing on that and stressing about that for a really long period of time. And then straight after the show, my immune system is like, okay, my work here is done, and pieces out for like a month, and I crash. So I have downed an entire bottle of ginger beer. So yeah, if I start burping at some point in this segment, I apologize. It's probably that. And also, I'm gonna attempt to keep this segment of the video relatively brief because it does low-key hurt to talk, but I do have a lot of stuff to chat about. So, yeah, we'll see. But anyway, I do have two books that I want to talk about because we're at the end of the month. This is like the final update of the video, and I managed to finish two more books since the last time we spoke. So, I'm going to talk about that now. They were two arcs that I got off of NetGalley, um, except one of them is now out in the world, and I have a finished copy of it because I pre-ordered it literally last year, and yeah, I have it in my possession. This is This Immortal Heart by Jennifer Saint. Jennifer Saint is an auto-buy author for me. I love her stuff. I have my review up on my iPad right in front of me because it has been like a week since I finished this book, and I have not much memory of anything outside of the show I was doing. So yeah, I just have it to remind myself of what has been going on. So this book was actually quite an interesting one because it's the first of Jennifer Saint's books to not be named after an individual mythological woman. Like you have Ariadne, obviously, and then you have Electra, Atalanta, and Hera, and then you have This Immortal Heart. And I was actually quite pleased that she has kind of broken away from the tradition of naming books after single mythological characters. Because I feel like, especially for Ariadne and Electra, it kind of sets up this expectation that the book is going to be told entirely from their perspective. But in Ariadne, it's told from the perspectives of Ariadne as well as her sister Phaedra, and then Electra is told from the perspectives of Electra as well as Clytemnestra and Cassandra. Um, and I think there are good things and negative things that I could talk um, about the the choice to have multiple POVs, but I think it does kind of, it's not kind of what you would expect from a book that is named after only one of those characters. And then, of course, you have Atlanta, which is just told from Atlanta's perspective, and Hera, which is told just from Hera's perspective. So when I heard that this book was called what it is, I figured, hey, it's not just called Aphrodite. So I'm expecting that it's going to be a dual POV or multiple POV kind of book. But this book did, again, defy my expectations because it is literally just told from the perspective of Aphrodite. It kind of did it in the reverse of Ariadne. It pulled an Uno reverse, basically. um, and yeah, so it's just told from the perspective of Aphrodite. And it's kind of a retelling of the loves of Aphrodite. Um, she's famous for having lots of affairs. Um, talks about Adonis. Um, talks about her rather tumultuous marriage to Hephaestus. Um, there's a lot of focus on Ares, which was what I was kind of expecting. I was kind of expecting a dual POV between Aphrodite and Ares because in terms of like the marketing and the proofs, like they had two different editions of the proofs. One was purple for Aphrodite, one was blue for Ares. I was kind of from that expecting there to be an Ares POV in there. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of focus on Ares. There's also a focus on Aphrodite's love for humanity itself and her kind of hope and optimism for humanity and her desire to bring beauty to mortal lives through love. And that's really the driving force of the book. And I really enjoyed that. I loved the fact that this book is very much driven by love. It makes a lot of sense because Aphrodite is, of course, the goddess of love and of beauty. And as a result of this book being driven by love, Aphrodite is cast as a very sympathetic character, a lot more sympathetic than the other characters, especially the other gods. Because she is technically older than her fellow Olympians, being the kind of daughter of Uranus. I say kind of because if you know anything about her origin story, yeah, it's a bit complicated. Um, but she is technically older than the other Olympians, and she lacks the kind of capriciousness that the rest of the gods have, and she lacks this kind of desire for revenge and power. And I feel like Jennifer Sate kind of picks and chooses the myths that she includes in this book to match up with that particular version of her character. Like, for example, she includes the myth of Pygmalion in Galatea, which shows her kind of generosity for um, receiving and granting prayers. But on the other hand, she doesn't include like the myth of Psyche and Eros, where Aphrodite is a lot less sympathetic and is very, very jealous of Psyche and her beauty and the almost worship that mortals have of her and of her beauty. And it would actually be quite difficult to cast Aphrodite as a sympathetic character while also including that myth. So I get why Jennifer Say wouldn't want to include it, but I kind of I it was noticeable. I did clock that she didn't include that particular very well known myth, where Aphrodite does play a large part in a book about Aphrodite. So while I wouldn't necessarily say that this is the most accurate representation of Aphrodite, it's still a refreshing and original, I guess, um, take on her character. It does make her an easy protagonist to root for. I did like her. She's a likable character. And then I also really liked Ares' character as well. Um, he's complex and multifaceted. He's a lot more than like the kind of dumbed down brute that appears in a lot of other retellings. Um, like he has a lot of pent up anger, has a lot of walls up, and there's a reason for that. Um, but I think he does complement Aphrodite well, and I liked the focus on their romance. There is like a large chunk in the second half of the book where Ares disappears completely, and there's a reason for that, obviously. Um, but I found myself missing him quite a bit actually. So yeah. Anyway, I feel like that's about it for this book. Um, the pacing is great. It's like perfectly paced, even though it covers such a wide range of myths. It's the same as what I said about Hera when I read it. Like the pacing is so good, but there's a large amount of content covered. The scope of the book is a lot less. It's a lot shorter than Hera. It doesn't cover like thousands and thousands of years, um, but it covers kind of a shorter amount of time in a bit more detail. So yeah, I feel like that's it. Um, This Immortal Heart by Jennifer Saint. I really enjoyed it. Didn't quite enjoy it quite as much as I enjoyed Hera, but I still would definitely recommend. It's out now. Officially, it's going to be out in like a couple of days, but by the time this video is edited and uploaded, etc., it will already be out. So yeah, I would definitely recommend. Hello again. I was called down to dinner in the middle of making that last part, so the lighting has changed, obviously, because the sun's gone down. But I'm back, and yeah, to be honest, my voice needed the break anyway, so um, I'm gonna move on to the other book that I finished last week, which is an arc of Isolde by Phoenicia Rogerson. We're going from an arc that is now already out to an arc of a book that doesn't come out until November, which is tragic because I want to talk about this book with more people who read it, and I can't because it doesn't come out until November. I did say that I had a bit of a secret weapon up my sleeves, um, in case the last book turned out to be a flop. The last book didn't turn out to be a flop, but I still wanted to read this book anyway because I knew that if I did, I was going to end it on like a massive high, because Phoenicia Rogerson has never let me down, and she still has not because she continues to churn out absolute bangers. This is quite a different book to her previous works. It's not a retelling of Greek or Roman mythology, it is a retelling of Arthurian legend. And also, it is not multiple POV, it's just dual POV. It alternates between Tristan and Isolde. This is a retelling of the myth of the legend of Tristan and Isolde. I didn't actually know much about this legend going into this book. I still don't know a massive amount because I don't really know how much of it is true and how much of it is kind of creative license from a retelling. But what I did kind of know is that like they're tragic lovers. There's Camelot business involved. There's, I think, mistaken identity leading to at least one death in the myth, I believe. But yeah, mostly it's like they're tragic lovers, basically. So the book opens on Isolde being put on trial. She is the Queen of Cornwall. She has married the King of Cornwall, and she has been found in bed with the King of Cornwall's nephew slash adopted son slash favorite knight, Tristan. And they get expelled from Cornwall, and they end up seeking refuge in Camelot. But the thing is, they say that they're in love, they're infatuated with each other for real. They're in proper true love. However, they eventually discover that they have been under the influence of a love spell, a love potion, and they then have to, in order to like keep their place as like famed lovers in Camelot, they have to like fake their infatuation to each other. They have to fake their relationship. They essentially have to like make everyone believe that their love is true and not the result of the love potion. And while all of that is going on, they come to learn that King Arthur's court isn't quite the paradise that it appears to be. So, I love this book. As I said, Phoenicia Rogerson does not miss. I don't think I expected to love it as much as I did, just because it is so different to her other books. But yeah, my expectations were exceeded, in fact. I loved the narration in this book. I think I say that with all of Phoenicia Rogerson's books. She manages to craft such a strong narrative voice, or narrative voices, So the book is written in dual POV, first person, alternating between Tristan and Isolde, but both of them actually narrate their chapters like addressing each other. So it's in first person as well as second person. Um, so there'll be a lot of like, you did this, you did that, um, and I love that. I thought it was so great, so original, so interesting, and it really shows how like dedicated they are to each other, and how they're such a perfect match. Like they really are soulmates, despite the fact that like in the at the beginning of the book they are under the influence of a love potion, and those feelings are to an extent fake. Um, we do kind of quickly come to realize that although they believe their love is entirely fake, like there were definitely true feelings kind of lingering underneath the love potion. And the only thing the love potion really did was like amplify those feelings. I don't really think that's gonna be spoilers because again, this is a retelling of like a really well known tragic love story. So obviously there's gonna be some romance and there's a lot of like mutual pining and being oblivious to one's feelings. Um yeah, it's great. And then in the second half, as the conflicts in the story kind of grow and there are lots of secrets and lies and real life events that are putting a strain on Tristan and Isolde's relationship, um, like that really lended this kind of realness to the relationship. Like it's not a perfect love story where they all live happily ever after. Um, they're two very different people who at times have very different wants and needs, and they need to negotiate that. And sometimes, things don't always go to plan. And it really is so heartbreaking to read. It's a real situation of like right person, wrong time, or right person, not enough time. I always applaud Phoenicia Rogerson's ability to write a novel that will make me laugh out loud one moment and then like hold back tears the next moment. It's a really good balance of like being very, very funny and also quite heartbreaking. Um, yeah, it's so good. If I had to give like one minor criticism, I would probably say that like the pacing in the last few chapters felt kind of rushed. Like there were a lot of events that happened in quick succession and a couple of time skips and things. It did feel like everything was kind of over too quickly. Um, Especially in comparison to the rest of the book where the pacing is a lot more slow. But to be honest, that might just be me not wanting the book to end. So yeah, it's a great book. It's a really well written tragic love story. There's lots of magic. There are two really strong protagonists that hold the story together. Yeah, I am just disappointed that the book doesn't come out for months and months, and I'm going to have to wait until November to talk about it with other people who have also read it. But yeah, that is Isolde by Phoenicia Rogerson. And that's it. Those are all of the books that I read in May. Hurrah, we're done. I think I can safely say that this month, this reading challenge was a success. Um, I definitely read a lot of bangers. I read a couple of flops. There were a couple, but there are always going to be a couple of flops, and I genuinely did really enjoy most of these books. My favourite book that I read this month was Isolde. Um, Coming in at the last minute, a last minute entry, taking the lead. Um, I don't think it is recency bias. I don't think. I think it just was that good. I enjoyed it that much. Least favourite was, of course, Vile Lady Villains. Um, yeah, that I think that was the only book this month that I genuinely did not enjoy, and I don't think was a very good book. Um, so yeah, if it was only one book this month that I didn't enjoy, I think that's a win. I think that's a win. Thank you so much for watching this video. especially if you got to this point, because I'm sure it's going to be another long one. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. You can also find me on Storygraph, Instagram, TikTok, etc., etc. My username on all those platforms is @WithLivJones, which is exactly the same as it is on here. I've got lots more content planned this year, throughout the year, so definitely stay tuned on all of those platforms. I need to go and steam my voice now because I am in Spain without the S. So I will see you when I see you. Thanks so much again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!